Adobe After Effects is a wonderful tool to add special effects, motion graphics, and tons more to your videos. It's one of the most used programs for such tasks in professional video productions, but it comes with a technical challenge. So let's get started and let me introduce you to a whole new world. A world where anything imaginable is possible. Hey folks, it's Jordy here for Cinecom.net and welcome to the channel, which is all about creative filmmaking. The intro you've just seen was created inside Adobe After Effects. Those who are familiar with Photoshop know that one final image is usually created by multiple layers, composing different elements together to create something new. One example is this clip right here. A simple shot where Janek walks up to a hill. We've gathered several elements and brought them together to create a whole new scene. You can see After Effects as the Photoshop for video. So let's get started with this amazing program and I'll show you an introduction to the first and basic options of Adobe After Effects. The first thing that you might notice is that there are different panels, and each of these panels or windows will serve you with different options or a different functionality. The one here on top, in the top left, is the project panel, and you can see that by the name here. This one here is going to collect all of the elements that you are going to work with. So that means the video clips, the images, the sound effects, doesn't matter, everything is collected in here. And then we can start editing them. Then we can start dragging them to the timeline, which is here on the bottom. And once you've done that, you will see an output here in the composition panel of what we are creating. And then here on the right side, we've got some more options, like, for example, the effects and presets window, which, like the name says, contains all of the effects we can then drag onto our video clips to create a certain visual look and adjust that to our needs. Now, if you are looking for a particular window, you can always head over to the menu here, select window, and right here you can find all the available panels. Now, these are, of course, many panels. We can't go through all of them. So let's start with the basics, which is the project panel. What I've got right here is a folder with 3 clips inside. And what we can do is just drag that inside that project panel to import it into After Effects. There we go. I still find drag and dropping the easiest way. You can, of course, also go from the menu here, File, and then say Import, just like any other program works inside your computer. Now, once we've done that, we have to create the timeline. As you can see, it's not really active yet. We don't see anything right in here. And that's because we have to create, like, if you are familiar with Premiere Pro, where we had to create a sequence, in here, we have to create a composition. It's basically the same thing, but kind of has a different name. Now, to create that composition, you can click here on this little icon here, which just says Create a New Composition in the bottom of the project panel. Click on that, which gives you different options on how you would like to set your composition. And that is the resolution, the frame rate, and so on. And you can give that a name, of course. Let's just give that Test for now. Press OK. And now you can see that the timeline is active here on the bottom. There's nothing in here yet, and that's the reason why we're seeing this transparent grid. If you don't like that, you can also choose to have a black output because there's nothing in here. So that's also something that you can work with. And that is done by a little toggle inside the composition window here on the bottom. You will see that here, Toggle Transparency Grid. Click on it to disable it, or click again on it to enable that. But for the things that we are going to do right now, it doesn't really matter if this is enabled or disabled at the moment. Let's go back to the project panel because I've got a shot here of Janek, and I'm going to drag that into my timeline. There are 2 things that you can do. You can drag it inside your composition panel over here, or drag it directly into the timeline, which will add that layer into it. And as you can see, this layer is pretty thin. It looks way different as in Premiere Pro, and that's because we're usually going to work with multiple layers in here, so that's also why it has to be thin to create more space within this panel. If there, by the way, wouldn't be enough space in this panel, you can always here go into the intersections of each panel and just drag that larger or smaller if you like. So, and that can be done with any panel you can find in here. So Janek here, he's walking up to this hill, as we can see, but you know, it's pretty boring. It's a pretty small hill, and Janek, you know, he really loves to be that epic guy. But, you know, doing a travel to some great mountains wasn't really possible. We didn't have the time to do that. So I told him, you know, I'm just going to, like, After Effects you into a better place. So that's why I've got also this shot here of the Andes mountain. And also that we can drag into the timeline. As I'm dragging it into it, you cannot really see the Andes mountain. And that's because it's below the Janik layer. If we're going to move this Andes mountain here on top of Janik, you will then do see the Andes mountain. So it's a basic principle. Things that lay on top of something are shown first. Now every layer has, of course, certain properties, and those can be located by opening up that layer. You can find this little arrow here on the side of that layer. Click on it, which will open up the transform options, and this is something that any layer has. These are basic properties like the position, the scale, and so on. We can change these settings in here, but what we can also do is click on that layer to select it and then just drag it around in your canvas. You can also use the outsides here to rescale that. And if you hold down your shift key, it will always keep its proportions. If for some reason you'd like to reset what you're doing in here, you can go into the settings here underneath the transform, and you will see this little button here which says reset. Click on that and that will bring it back to the normal state. Now what I want to do is blend Janik into this shot. So the first thing is to drag this layer of the Andes mountain below Janik, because we're going to cut out a piece from this clip and make sure that it kind of fits in with the mountain. Now to cut it out, we don't need scissors, but we're going to use the mask tool. And those who are familiar with Adobe Photoshop know what this thing is capable of. You can find that mask tool here on top in the toolbox, this little pen tool. And if you click on that, it will be activated. You can also see that on your cursor, which is now changed. And this allows us to create a path. And a path is always created by connecting different points together. So instead of cutting like you would do with scissors, you just click around and create different points, connect them together to create your shape. And what I want to do is kind of go around this path. Now make sure that your clip is selected before you start creating a path in here, which is very important. The Janik clip is selected, and now I can start clicking on here, creating different points and connecting them together to create that shape. And if you like, so you can always go outside of these edges here, outside of the canvas. And I'm doing this for a reason, which you will find out in just a minute why I'm doing this. You can always use your mouse to scroll in and out, zoom in and out. That's exactly what I'm doing here too. And I'm going to finish the path. Make sure that it's closed, very important, else you won't see the effect. Just click on the first point that you've created to close your path. And now you will see the final result. Now, after you've been zooming a lot, you might want to reset